All right, peace, 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 everybody. I just put a new link into the Group Me chat for those who were coming in from the Group Me page. And just working on getting the link out to everybody. Can somebody please share the link with Yvette and Sherry if you have their number? Hey, Whitney, how you doing? Who else is in the room? I see Whitney. And we got the chat working. So that's good. Becca. All right. So we'll just give just a few more minutes to let everybody get in. Yeah, learn a new platform is something else. Hey, Gwen. All right. Good to see y'all checking in. I appreciate it. Mary in the house. Let me make sure I can get Yvette and Sherry in. Everybody doing okay this morning? Kind of refreshing to interact with one another and not be so blazing hot outside. Although it's pretty mild right now, but these summers have just been, or this summer has been pretty wild. I think of all of the summers that I've been doing this one has been pretty excruciating. But it's part of the process. And like I mentioned one time before, many of our area farmers will will plant cover crops across many acres or across whatever amount of space that they're growing on, and get out of here. They'll go on vacation, they'll go camping, or they'll travel north so that they can escape some of this heat. And it's understandable. I know, Mary, I know you're working, and just hopefully you'll be able to catch much of what we discuss here today. But I got to get this thing situated, and I know because I'm a new streamer, there's certain features that I may not have access to, but I want to get this thing going. So, I'll have screen share capability, uploading PowerPoints and different presentations, having the ability to receive phone calls. So I'm just trying to figure all of that out. But these platforms don't make it easy. Becca, wow, 112 in terms of the actual field today. Whew, man. Yeah, that's deep. That is deep. Now I will be trying certain things on here to see if I can share screen and do all of that, but I'm not sure. But at any time, if anything goes wrong, please put it in the chat so I can see what's happening in case I'm unable to manage it myself, or if I'm unable to see it. Hey, Lynn, good to see you. Yeah, all of this is interesting. But hey, I want you all to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, all of that good stuff that you usually hear from your YouTube streamers, so that we could get followers up so we can build the following and build our platform and, be able to get this information out to people because from the feedback that I've received from you all, it seems that you all have acquired a healthy amount of information and that you're pleased with and that you think and feel that you can actually carry on to utilize in your own growing space. So definitely we want to bring this information and I'll start coming up with various topics to touch on. Hopefully some of you all will have your own farm spaces and then I can come with a camera or a camera crew and then we can visit your farm space and highlight what it is that you do in your area or in your own farm space. So I look forward to seeing some of you all after you complete this apprenticeship. Whitney, I know you're recently back from living out of state, and I hope to see what is in your storehouse and what you got up your sleeve as well, because I know you're passionate about this food movement also. I don't see Yvette and Sherry on just yet. Yvette or Sherry, if you all are on, can you just throw something in the chat to let me know you're in the room? And then we can kind of get started on some of the topics that we are going to discuss today. So please hit that share button, the subscribe button, like the video. Let's make this thing exciting. Although, hey, I ain't gonna lie, this first video probably won't be that exciting, right? You see my graphics, a shelf with a bunch of with a bunch of crap on it. See some squash, kabocha, syrup, hot sauce, some peppers, coffee, waffle mix. So not that exciting. We're gonna get all of that, sorted out and worked out. And yeah, good job, Whitney. I'm glad that you're starting the program. And then we can get you down the line during, for an apprenticeship, so long as those funds are being channeled down to you all once you graduate. And it's just great having you in the space already, so you can become familiar with, the landscape, being that you were away, the urban ag, and just the surrounding area, and all of its agricultural production. Because it's a lot going on in this area. I know during you all's program, y'all had an opportunity to visit, quite a few farms that we have in the area. But you all would be really, really surprised that the whole Big Bend area, all of the 9 counties that sort of make up the Big Bend, there's a lot of agricultural production, and not all of it is, commercial. So the farm tour is coming up October 9th, maybe. If somebody knows the exact date for the farm tour, you can drop it in the chat. Let everybody know what's going on or that date. But then there's some books, and they should have a website up pretty soon if they don't already, showing all of the farms that will be on the farm tour. And that's a great way to check out the landscape and to see what's going on. And what's interesting is that I've actually never been on the farm tour as a like a consumer and going out and seeing what else is out there, because I've always been a host farm on the farm tour. So when you host, you're not allowed to go out and see what else is out there. I've just been fortunate enough to connect with a few farmers over the years, but there are so many farmers and so many farm production operations here in our area that I have not seen. I've seen some things in Jefferson County. I've seen some farms and ag production in Gadsden County. But most of my experience has been in the urban ag space here in, Leon County, Tallahassee. So it'll be great. I think I'm going to do the farm tour this year if I don't have anything else on the schedule. And I'm going to drive around and see, what else is out there. There's a sheep farm that I've been dying to get to. It's called Promised Land, if I'm not mistaken. We're just Promised Land. This is Promised Land, and they're sheep production. Did anybody send Yvette and Sherry the new link? If someone could, that would be great. Someone send them the new link if you have their number. That would be amazing. All right. She just texted me back saying that they were going to check it, but I think they'll be able to get on in a minute. Excuse me. Okay. All right. So y'all, let's get started. I don't want to keep everybody for too long. Okay. They said that they're in, so that's good. All right. So welcome, Yvette and Sherry. Hopefully you all are in. And so we're just going to touch on various topics that you all submitted. Okay. And I want your questions as we go along. I want your questions in the chat so that we can really touch on all of these subjects. And so Lotta was able to take all of the inquiries and sort of divide them up into a few different categories. And so the categories that we have are general practices, pests and disease, and also red hills. And so we're going to go deeper into each one of these topics, each one of these general subtopics, and go a little bit deeper into the various points that you all have brought up over the past couple of weeks. So, all right, cool. Yap pin. All right, there we go. All right. So some of the general practices. One of the questions is, how do you build great soil? And what is the relationship between fungi, nematodes, protozoa, etc., as they exist in the soil community? So many of you all and myself, we've discussed, good soil. We've discussed what it requires to create a good soil profile. For all of you have had experience down at Promised Land, and so that's on the southern part of our county, or at least moving towards the southern part of our county. And you notice how sandy it is. The ground is really soft. It's sandy. And that's generally how it becomes the closer you are to the water. You got to remember, Tallahassee is only 30, 40 minutes from the coast, from the Gulf of Mexico. So we're not far at all from the ocean. And so the closer you get to a body of water, especially a salted body of water, you're going to, the soil profile is going to continue to get a little bit more sandier. And then if you ask people down in the Wakulla and the Crawfordville area, Wakulla County, Crawfordville, Woodville, they'll tell you straight up, it's just sand. My yard is just sand, and that's just the way it is. It's just been created like that over time. And so if you were in that type of area, or say you went a little bit north Leon County, southern Georgia, you would encounter clay, a lot of red clay. That's why a lot of people have taken, and a lot of businesses have taken on the name Red Hills. Red Hills Online Market, there's a Red Hills Medical Center off of Miccosukee. And so that name is a popular name here because of the red hills and the red clay that you tend to encounter as you move more northern throughout our county and moving into southern Georgia. And so either of those two soil profiles, you want to amend. You want to be able to introduce organic matter to assist with the building of your soil. So all of that entails is just adding organic matter. And organic matter can come in the form of a few different ways. Somebody drop it in the chat. What's one form that organic matter can come in to help us build soil? Anybody? What's a form of organic matter that we can integrate into our fields or into our grow spaces to help build soil? Compost, exactly. Compost is one of the main forms of organic matter that you can integrate in order to build your soil. All right, in addition to that, do we have another? What's another form of organic matter that we can integrate into our soils to build the soil? Okay, fertilizer. What type of fertilizer are we talking about? Are we talking about synthetic? Are we talking about man-made? Was it created in the lab? Um, and so we got to be careful with the word fertilizer because some people categorize compost as a fertilizer. And so if we want to use it in that regard, then I would say yes. If we take fertilizer that is synthetic and has synthetic nitrogen and synthetic phosphorus and synthetic potassium, synthetic elements, then we are not building soil. Okay, so we have to be careful with using the word fertilizer. Um, Worm castings, definitely. Cover crops, definitely. So let's touch on a few of these things really quick. So compost is normally a controlled integration or mixing of various feedstocks, is what we call them. So that's all. That's everything that goes into a compost pile is your feedstock. So that could be your wood chips. That's your fruit and veggie scraps, your coffee grounds, your grass clippings, manures coming from just about any type of ruminant animal. But rabbit manure is also good. But usually manure is coming from cow, horse, um, goat, sheep. A lot of those ruminant animals can be their manure is pretty solid and pretty good for integration into a compost pile. So those are your feedstocks. And when you mix those things, you provide the right environment. Many of you have seen us make compost at the Frenchtown Urban Farm. Whitney, I know you're the only one who hasn't seen it yet. And so we definitely invite you to that space. We want to get you up there to the Frenchtown Urban Farm so you can see the compost community operation as well. And so compost is that managed mixing of various feedstocks to produce a substrate that you can take and actually grow food with. You can use it to prevent erosion. You can use it to build up pasture. You can use it to just integrate greater forms and greater levels of microbiology into your soil profile. And so compost, as it is broken down by way of the microbial process, then after the microbes basically do most of the work during the 18 to 30, 45, 60-day period, it begins to settle, it begins to cool. The microbes begin to level off and stabilize. And then fungi begin to proliferate within a compost pile almost a week after it cools down. So once your temperatures in a compost pile get to about 120 and below, fungi then begin to set in because they can't really handle those hot temperatures that the microbes produce. And so somebody drop it in the chat for me really quick. What is our PFRP temperature range? Who can give me an idea as to what that temperature range is for PFRP? Process to further reduce pathogens. What is that PFRP range? Can anybody put that in for me? 140 is a sweet spot. But what is our minimum? What is our minimum temperature? And what is our maximum temperature? That's important to know. We got to make sure that you understand what your minimum temperatures are. And you can deal with the higher temperatures, but you have to reach that minimum. So that minimum is 131 degrees Fahrenheit. That is your minimum temperature that you must have to know that your microbes are killing off pathogens, that they are outpacing and outmaneuvering anaerobic bacteria, because we have our microbes are aerobic. We want oxygen loving bacteria. So the aerobic microbes, we want them to outperform and outcompete the anaerobic. Okay, so that can only happen at 131 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, your maximum temperature can be anywhere between like 160, 170. Once you get into that 160 and higher range, your diversity of microbial life begins to diminish. Okay? So it's the same thing at the 131 mark. At the 131 mark, at least you know you're meeting the minimum requirements to begin to kill off pathogens, outcompete anaerobic bacteria, and neutralize weed and grass seeds. Okay? But your diversity is still minimal. Okay? So like Yapin in the chat mentioned 140, and that 145 mark, that is your sweet spot, because it's kind of like that middle spot in between the 131 and the 160. And there you have the most diverse levels of microbial life within your compost pile. So those are the temperatures that you want to actually strive for. You want to strive for that 140 to 145 mark. Now, when you get higher than 155, 160, 165, even 170, which I've actually seen before, then again, it's too hot to where those bacteria that are kind of in that lower range, that 131 up to about 140, that heat can actually begin to kill off and neutralize those lower temperature microbes, and therefore you're left with less diversity when you you reach those temperatures. So you want to search for that sweet spot, that 140, 145 when building your compost pile, and watching those temperatures maintain over the course of 15 to 20 days. Flipping the pile at least 5 times. Now that's like your organic standard set by the industry, but that organic standard was set by the industry to actually deal with human manure. So when they were coming up with those standards, it was really for human waste. And so dealing with vegetable waste and animal manure, you still want to try to follow those same standards, because that's just the standard that the industry and the government and compost experts have set over time, because that way that you're neutralizing anything pathogenic and anything anaerobic. However, many people don't turn their pile 5 times within a 15-day period. But you can still produce quality compost even without adhering to those rigorous standards, right? But that's what those organic standards were originally set out to do. It was to handle human manure, right? And many composters don't deal with human manure, other than some larger corporations that get paid to take biosolids from municipalities and cities from their waste treatment plants. And so you have one company that exists there in North Carolina, and I think they also have a South Florida location, but it's called McGill. I actually visited one of their locations in the Raleigh-Durham area, and all they compost are biosolids, right? So they're taking all of this waste and they use an ASP system, the forced air system. Very high-tech operation, so high-tech that they didn't even allow us to see certain things in that that particular operation. Whitney, I hope that this thing is being recorded. Like I said, I'm still learning the platform and still trying to figure out how to work all of the components. But yes, if it's being recorded, I really hope so. And actually, no, yeah, it is, because once it's done, I'm taken to a dashboard to view it and to edit it and that type of thing. So yeah, it's YouTube. It is being recorded. So I'll make sure that when I, finish it, if I want to edit, add some fancy words on top or on the screen, we'll do that and we'll get that video back out. So if you have to leave, I understand. If you can stay with us, that's cool. But we do want to make sure that we save it for future use and for future audiences. So that particular company, McGill, they only compost biosolids. Like I said, sophisticated ASP, aerated static pile system. That's where you force air into the compost pile from the bottom, and you never have to turn the pile, because the forced air connected to a timer and connected to temperature sensors allow them to maintain and monitor that sweet spot of temperature without ever having to turn the pile. And then once they've met their organic standards, then they're able to take that compost and put it on the market. But usually companies that compost biosolids don't market their product to vegetable growers, to small farmers. That compost is very rich, but simply because it's made from biosolids, people who grow food tend to stay away from that type of compost, as you can imagine. So where they market that material, where do you think that material is being marketed to? If that's a compost and they're not marketing it to small farmers or vegetable growers, what type of operations do you think they're marketing that product to? So that particular type of compost is usually marketed to, there you go, Becca, large institutions that have just grass, right? Golf courses, Whitney, probably some big farms, but again, they have to be mindful of whether or not it's going towards true food production. I wouldn't be surprised if some of this material is being marketed to large commercial pastures or large commercial farms that grow food for cattle and that grow food for livestock. Because, a lot of grain is grown for cattle in this country to fatten them up, to get them as fat as they can possibly get them. And so, there's so many farmers that grow thousands of acres of corn, and not one human will touch that corn. The humans will end up eating the cattle that ate all of that corn, most of the time GMO corn, right? But so I wouldn't be surprised if some of that compost is marketed to maybe some of those types of farms, but not directly to farmers who are growing produce to sell to people and to take to the vegetable market across the country. But yeah, golf courses. Think about NFL grass fields, soccer fields, institutions of higher learning, the fields that they have intramural sports played on. Like I said, all of the sports fields. So, okay, Lynn, we'll see when you get back. So those are some of the places that they market to. Lawn service companies, probably some of the larger lawn service companies might, again, use that material to go out and use it as a fertilizer for other people's yards. So that's primarily what that type of compost is marketed out for. Is marketed for grasses, fields, golf courses, things of that nature. So, all right, so we're going to move along. So compost, yes, that organic matter that you create from manures, fruit and veggie scraps, wood chips, yes, that definitely helps to build up your soil profile. We mentioned cover crops and worm castings. So worm castings can definitely help build up your soil. One of the issues with worm castings is that you just never have enough, right? Those worms, as much as we love them, they'll never produce enough castings unless you're going to take like a 5-year, time span to build up the soil in your growing space. Of course, you can take a bunch of worm castings and build up soil in maybe like a 4x4 bed or maybe even a 4x8. But you go any larger than that, it's going to take you a long time to build up your soil unless you're buying bulk loads of worm castings, and that can become pretty expensive. So some of the more cost-effective ways to do it are through through compost, making your own compost, because you can create a bulk amount and distribute that over larger amounts of growing space. But worm castings are good. You just need a lot of them in order to increase the amount of fertility and space that you're really trying to grow on if you're going to use worm castings. But worm castings are great, right? The same way that we use the sifted compost to drop in the hole to put a plant in or to drop a seed. You can do the same thing with worm castings. And of course, that's what we're looking to do with Compost Community is integrate more of the worm castings into the sifted compost to give us an even greater chance of that seed germinating with all of the right microbiology coating that seed. So it gives it the very, very best start that it could possibly have at the beginning of its life cycle. So cover crops. Cover crops is probably the most cost-effective between that and compost. Compost is if you're just using the compost from your own kitchen or maybe from neighbors, that's very cost-effective, but laborious, right? Building it, flipping it, taking the temperatures, doing all of that, the labor can be quite intense. Cover crops, you would just need to buy the seed. And you can buy enough cover crop seed at a very low price to cover, a couple of acres. And the cover crops, once they catch, a lot of times, you can drill them in or actually plant the seed as you would any other seed, or you can broadcast just by throwing seed out. And you're hoping that the seed, once it germinates, that root will catch that soil and begin to dig its way down into the soil profile. Broadcasting, you won't get the best germination rate because that seed is not actually in the soil and being coated with those microbes. But depending on your space, depending on your time, you may have to broadcast. But if you're able to actually bury the seed, you're going to get better results. And so once those cover crops grow, you're talking, excuse me, grasses, ryegrass, oat, wheat, Sudan grass, barley. There's so many great grasses that you can grow to get amazing biomass. And that's what the grasses are going to give you. Those grasses are going to give you probably, 3 to 4 feet of biomass before they begin to tassel, right? And you've seen wheat grow. The grass will grow, be nice, beautiful green grass. Then it'll start to tassel. It'll start to brown out. But it's the tassel where your wheat is. It's the tassel where your oats are. And so you want to actually cut those cover crops before they really begin to tassel, because it's beginning to pull nutrients out of the soil profile in order to create the oat that we consume, to create the wheat that we consume. But grasses give you great biomass. Then you have legumes. And so your legumes are your nitrogen fixers. So these are your beans. So remember, at Promised Land, we're growing, what type of legume are we growing? Somebody drop that in the chat really quick. What type of legume are we growing at Promised Land? We're growing 2 types, but 1 type we've actually been harvesting from. What type of bean, Lara? Yes, we're growing those Crowder peas. And so the Crowder pea, you all have seen the pods, you've seen the beans inside of them. Oh, let me show you. This is what, where is it? Somewhere. Oh, here they go. Isn't that beautiful? These are the Crowder peas. Shucked, deshelled, ready to go. That's some good eating right there. All right. So, and when I'm thinking about it, you remember those Crowder peas were grown integrated with the corn. So they also use the corn stalks as trellises. But truth be told, I think we planted, oh no, you know what? I broadcasted some of those seeds and I also buried some. But I would say I probably planted about, I would say 15, 20 seeds. Not all of them actually caught, but it was enough. So imagine planting, 5 or 10 of these Crowder pea plants. And remember, these seeds that are dry, everybody needs to grab a dry pea pod from that plant so they can have peas ready to plant for next season. Each one of these peas can be dropped in the ground and a whole nother plant will grow. That'll give us, an exponential amount of peas to harvest and consume. I remember, Gwen, I saw the picture of your plate that you made with the peas. I was like, can I get some, please? But you had already ate everything up. So I was like, wah, wah, wah. I missed out because I know you threw down on that plate. It looked really good. But this is, and here, let me grab this this bag really quick so I can show y'all. So here we go. These are all of the husks from the pea, right? So that's the only tedious part about it, is actually shelling them, and we don't have the technology to do it the way the big boys do it. But all of this stuff, the shells, this will go right back into your compost. All of this material is great. It's great to go right back into your compost. So that's why I had my nephew shelling the peas and just putting all of the husks in the bag, so this can go right back onto the farm and integrate it into our compost pile. That's the beauty of waste. That's what we're doing. Taking trash and turning it into treasure, turning it into something that we can use to grow more of what it is that we want to consume in life. All right, so beautiful, isn't it? And so the peas that we harvested yesterday, I'll be able to fill this jar up, and then maybe a quarter of another jar. So this is what we would consider homesteading, right? You want to have pumpkins like these that can sit on your counter probably for months, maybe even a year. I have a Seminole pumpkin squash that I harvested last year around this time, still sitting up on another rack, just like this one. So, so back to soil profile. So those are your legumes, right? Many different peas, many different beans. The black-eyed pea is one of the only legumes that you can allow to go to full seed and you won't lose your nitrogen. Many legumes you have to cut down before the seed pod begins to develop, because remember, legumes are taking atmospheric nitrogen, pulling it into its stalk and sending it down into the soil throughout the root profile and creating nodes or nodules of nitrogen, and it's fixating it into your soil profile. But many of them, when they are beginning to actually grow the seed pod, it is utilizing and pulling that nitrogen back into itself to produce its seed, to produce its next generation. And so you want to be careful to monitor your legumes, to cut back, to chop and drop before it begins to pull into those seed pods, to pull that nitrogen back into the seed pods. But the black-eyed pea is a great one to grow, because not only will you be able to maintain and hold the same amount of nitrogen as the plant can fix before seed pods develop and after the seed pods develop. Okay, so you not only get the benefit of having multiple pounds of nitrogen being fixed into your soil, and you also get the added benefit of being able to harvest the bean itself. Let's see. You asked, are peas and beans the same? For the most part. Some we just classify as peas, some we classify as beans. But usually the pod, we consider it a bean pod, and the pea is inside of the bean pod. But they're naturally one and the same. And some we eat when they're green and more raw, like a string bean, right? But the bean inside of a string bean is a little different from some of your dry peas that we normally consume, like black-eyed peas, Crowder, purple hull, pink hull eyed peas. It's a little bit of a different profile. I don't know all of the science behind that, but you can look at the bean inside of like a string bean pod, and it's a little larger than most dry beans. And when a string bean dries out, you're not really getting a bean or a pea that you would cook after that. You normally are just going to use that bean to plant for the next season. Same thing with like snow peas. Like when you buy a can of peas, yuck. But snow peas, you get the round pea. And usually when you let those dry out, you only use them to plant for that next season, plant for that next generation. You don't normally cook those peas once they dry out, or cook string beans once they dry out. You eat those things more fresh. So some differences, but we could definitely go in, I can definitely do a little bit more research, or if somebody else wants to go a little bit deeper in researching, those main differences between like a string bean and a black-eyed pea, on a biological level. but there are some differences. But both can fixate nitrogen. I don't think the string beans and the like snow peas can fixate at the same level or the same rate. But again, that's just kind of me going off in my, thinking about what I've observed and witnessed over the years. But somebody can look that up. But that was a great question, Yvette and Sherry. So you got your grasses, you got your legumes, and your brassicas. So your brassicas are mustards, kales, and like radishes. But the brassicas that are utilized the most, and turnips. You can use turnips as a cover crop also. But the brassicas that are used the most are your daikon radish, because the daikon radish can get, it could be anywhere from like 6 inches to a foot long. Okay, Mary. As well as, pretty thick in diameter. And basically you can use daikon radishes to break up clay soil and to open it up so it's more aerated. And you can allow the daikon radish to, you can harvest it, use it, eat it, sell it, or all of the nutrients that the daikon radish pulled into itself, you can allow a certain percentage of those radishes to rot back into the ground and slow release those nutrients back into the soil profile. So again, added benefit. You get aeration, digging into that hard pan or that clay soil, and then letting them rot allows those nutrients that it took in to slow release back into the soil profile. Okay. So compost, cover crops, and then you have your other ones such as like worm castings and different types of organic fertilizers, if we're going to go to fertilizer route. Okay. So let us move on, because y'all know I can talk about that stuff forever. So let me see. Some of these topics we don't have to cover every single one. When do you remove cover crops from rows? Usually before they began to tassel out, put out the fruit, put out, the one thing that's going to, diminish its ability to fix nitrogen or diminish the nitrogen that it has fixated into the soil. But normally you would remove some of those crops, about a few days or a week or so prior to you planting your cash crop or the crop that you want to consume. So you don't want to remove your cover crops and then wait a month before you replant, because you're giving that bed now an opportunity to experience some other things. Weed seeds can fly in, grasses can start to grow. So as soon as you're done with your cover crop, you almost immediately want to be able to plant your cash crop after that, a couple of days after, no more than a week after, from what I've experienced. And because remember, the cover crop a lot of times is being used to smother out other weeds, right? So if it's used to smother out weeds and then you chop it and drop it, and you're opening that space up now to more sunlight, more water, more seeds that can float in and take root, that defeats the purpose of growing that cover crop. So you want to be able to plant your cash crop very, very soon after you've chopped and dropped your cover crop. Okay. Do we use the chop and drop or not? And remove. Right. Okay. So I'm just kind of going into that. Normally, you want to keep the root system in the soil profile. So that's where we chop and drop. There are times where you may have to remove some plants, like, like okra stalks, right? If you all get a chance and you look at the stalks of the okra in Frenchtown, that red okra, those stalks have gotten massive, right? So sometimes it's easier to just yank the thing up out of the ground, because if you try to leave the root system in the ground, you have to come with a tool that's going to allow you to really chop that stalk. And so, the root system eventually will die off, but you're leaving that root system in the soil profile because of all of the microbial activity that's already around it. So that's why when we chop and drop, we leave that root system in the ground, allow that chopped material to begin to continue to smother the bed, try to keep the weeds from germinating. That stuff will dry up over the course of a week or so. And then when you got your starter plants, you can immediately come in and plug your starter plants in wherever, if you want to keep it nice and neat, keep your rows nice and neat, plant in, keep your symmetry and just plant in straight rows. Or, you can do it the way we do, like how we did our okra plants, how we stagger them. We'll go here, 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 like that, to give us a little bit of room for the plant to expand and grow and produce abundantly, but still keeping them kind of dense. We don't want to leave so much space in between. I made the mistake of doing that with the peppers this season down in Promised Land. I gave the peppers a lot of room, and they're not growing the way that I thought they were going to grow. So, even now we could still put a bunch of something, we could plant something in between those pepper plants. But at this stage, I'll probably just wait until we get our cool season crops started and ready to plug in. And then I'll just start plugging some leafy greens in between those pepper plants. So that's that's the answer for when we remove or chop and drop. All right. So when should you plant cover crops? Now that's a very key question, because cover crop planting is all about timing. So you need to know how long the life cycle is of that cover crop, right? So when you plant, it usually tells you how long something takes to germinate and how long it takes to mature. Your seed packet will usually say, 7 to 10 days to germinate, 7 to 14 days, and 55 days to mature, 75 days, 85 days, 100 days to mature. So depending on that cover crop, you need to know when you want to plant your cash crop, right? You need to have a date for when you want to plant your cash crop, and give yourself enough time for that cover crop to mature, at least get to the point of, okay, so if the mature date is, 75 days, then maturation means fully grown, fully developed. So if you want to cut your cover crop down, like say your legumes, before they began to produce the bean pods, then you'll say, all right, well, I know it's going to start producing bean pods at, 55 days or around 50 days. Maturation date is 65 to 70 days. So I need to be ready to chop that cover crop in like 45 to 50 days and be ready to plant my cash crop in that time frame that I wanted. I wanted to be able to plant it on the new moon, right? In September, to plant in accordance with like the almanac, and plant in accordance with the moon cycles and in nature. So you got to look at dates. Get your almanac, look at your dates, see when they recommend that we plant certain things for our area, wherever you happen to be, and look at the maturation dates for that cover crop. So you want to time it perfectly. And of course, it's all, a lot of it is trial and error, but the more data you have, the more information that you carry with you to your planting, your cover crop planting, as well as your cash crop planting, then you'll be able to utilize that information and create the best schedule you can for yourself. It's not always going to be perfect, but the more you do it, the more perfect you become and the better results you should yield. So that answers that question in regards to when do you plant cover crops? What are good crops for new growers? I always recommend that people start growing and expand their garden in the fall, right? You don't have to deal with the same bugs. You don't have to deal with the same heat. Your leafy greens tend to be very, very friendly, very forgiving. If you happen to chop something the wrong way, that plant is going to find a way to boop. It's going to put out a new shoot and start growing. I've seen it with collards and kale. You know, you and because those are those tough stalk, they're very hardy stalks. So you could chop like if a collard green is growing and you already got an abundance of leaves, and say somebody invades your garden and just breaks off the whole head of the collard green plant, which we've seen happen, that plant will begin to put out new leaves. So they're just very forgiving. They can bounce back from an injury. And so start in the fall simply because it's easier growing. And some of those crops, of course, are any leafy green from your brassica family, your collard greens, your turnips, your mustards, your radishes, your kales, your broccolis, your cauliflower, your pak choys, bok choys, arugula. All of those are within the brassica family. And I know I'm sure there's more that I'm missing. But that's some of the best growing and the most successful growing that you'll have moving into a fall season. And then, your root crops, like your carrots, of course, your radishes, your turnips, like I mentioned, beets, all very good for the fall season. And so you want to mix, you want a blend of, topical leafy greens, and then lettuces also, as well as root crops. And so your carrots, beets, turnips, radishes, rutabaga, kohlrabi. These are great crops to grow for your garden area moving into the fall space. So that's that. I always recommend people, if you're trying to start in the spring, and this is the beginning, you're just doing it for the first time, it's going to be tough because that weather's going to change. If you can squeeze in, our last frost is usually mid-March. If you can have plants ready to go by mid-March, then you get mid-March, April, May, June. You get a good 3.5, maybe 4 months of good spring growth before that heat really sets in. And, you can do okay. But if you haven't grown before and you start to move into those summer months, it's going to get really difficult. The bugs, the heat, and you all are experiencing that now, which I'm grateful for, so that you can know what this thing is really about if you want to try to grow during the summer months leading into the fall. Okay. Is everything seasonal, or are there any veggies, fruit that grow year round? Yes, you have perennials. Much of what's grown here in this region is seasonal. The great thing about our region is that you can grow year round, as you all are experiencing. Even though it's really, really hot, you can still grow a lot of food, especially your peppers, your eggplant, your okra, squash, pumpkins, things of that nature. So you have your seasonal crops, but then which are your annuals, and then you have your perennials, which are year round. So you got now the fruit is not going to bear fruit year round, but it's a perennial, so it'll come back every season. So you got your blackberries, you got your blueberries, you have all your fruit trees, all your citrus, your stone fruit, such as peaches and apricots, Figs, pears, all of these different fruit trees are going to come back every year. Now, you don't get fruit throughout the year. Hey, son. You don't get fruit throughout the year, but they are perennial. So that means that you don't have to plant them again. They'll come back. And so, and you want to have a mix of those things in your garden space. You want to create an ecosystem. You want to create an environment that's friendly for all of those types of crops, as well as the animals and beneficial bugs that will come into your space because of what you're growing. I want to just take you back to Promised Land, and I want everybody to observe that Thai basil bush on the west side of the garden, right in front of like some eggplant. Observe that basil bush, and you will just be amazed at the amount of pollinators that are flying around that one bush. And trust me, they don't stay there. They go there to get the nectar and to feed on that basil, but then they go fly around the entire garden, and they're going to go pollinate those squash, that pumpkin, right? They're going to pollinate the eggplant. They're going to pollinate tomato. Well, I don't know what's up with those tomatoes. Let me not even lie on that tomato plant, because I don't know what's up with those tomatoes that we planted. So forget the tomato, but they do pollinate all of those types of plants. And so you want to have an ecosystem in your space, right? Even if you want to concentrate on growing something like, turmeric or ginger or garlic. I see you, Gwen. Or you want to focus on fruit trees. You want to focus on just blueberries. That's great, but have other things planted to invite pollinators, to invite a little bit more animals and insects, beneficial insects into your space. You don't want a monolith. You don't want monoculture, right? That's the issue that we have with Big Ag today, is that they're planting thousands upon thousands of acres of soy, corn, cotton, wheat, and there's no way to create healthy soil if you're growing the same darn thing in the same space every single year. That's where all of the synthetics come in. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now, but we want to create an ecosystem. And so Gwen asked, do we plant garlic in the fall? Yes, you definitely plant garlic in the fall. You can start getting your bulbs ready, and you can get garlic bulbs from, your local co-op, or try to get organic garlic bulbs. Let it dry out a little bit. You can take the cloves off of the bulb, let them dry out, and get them prepared to go in the ground. But I would say, you could probably start doing something at the very end of this month, but mostly kind of in September. And garlic is great, but garlic is one of those crops that it's kind of like an onion. There's a word that the people in the Far East use to describe garlic and onion. And I'm gonna go off on a tangent just for a second. They say that you're not supposed to consume so much of garlic and onion because they actually inhibit your spiritual development. It's a word that they use. I cannot remember. It'll come to me, or I'll share it later in the chat. But if you consume too much garlic, too much onion, it actually stifles your ability to connect to a higher power. So this is what the Buddhists and yogis and spiritualists in the East, specifically in places like India, Cambodia, Singapore, Vietnam, the people the monks in Tibet, they say, yeah, it's good to consume those things at times and in moderation, but don't overly do it. Because I know, we've been taught to just cook with onion and garlic every time you cook something. It don't matter what you're cooking, onion and garlic, onion and garlic. So just be mindful of that. Do your research on that, okay? But I came across that information a while ago, and it's kind of stuck with me over the years. All right, so how do you grow and harvest turmeric and ginger? Easy. Turmeric is probably the easiest plant to grow in our region. Ginger can sometimes give you some problems, but they both do really well in our area. Turmeric and ginger, they don't require as much sunlight as other crops, but you normally plant turmeric and ginger in the spring, and so that you have a nice harvest come fall. But that's one of the few crops that if you had a shaded area in your yard or in your space, and you you couldn't open it up to full sunlight, plant some turmeric. You would be amazed at how well that turmeric and ginger can grow with minimal sunlight. Okay. And I can't wait for you all to harvest the turmeric that we have in Frenchtown. Y'all are going to go crazy when we pull up those rhizomes. And what started out as one piece of turmeric will now be a conglomerate. We're talking about a whole network of rhizomes that grew out from that one piece that we planted during the earlier part of the year. Okay. All right, moving right along. What exactly is required to be an organic gardener? Just don't use synthetics. Minimize the amount of synthetics and sprays that you use, because you'll find some synthetic stuff out there that's like organic certified, but just minimize the use of any of those things. How can we host our own farmers market? Collaboration. It takes collaboration and cooperation. That's why I love the fact that you all are going through this program. And, I know not everybody's goal is to become a large farmer. Not everybody's goal is to grow seasonal things year round. Some of you all may want to go more into flowers, cut flowers. Some of you all may focus on ginger and turmeric. Like, that's a business in and of itself. Some of you all may want to do more of a blueberry thing, right? And just have 25, 30, 40 blueberry bushes. That's good money. And you charge people to come and pick their own blueberries. Some of you all may want to do strictly herbs, where you sell fresh herbs, or you concentrate on drying those herbs out and making spice blends or making teas. All of those things are possible. But you have to come up with a plan, come up with an idea as to what you want to do, and then you position yourself to be a part of a market, an existing market, if you want to move into one that's already there, or if you wanted to start your own market. It's not difficult. It's not difficult at all. You just need a core group of people, a location. If you want to be in a position to help people who are on SNAP and EBT, you have to apply through Market Link. They work with Fresh Access Bucks and the Department of Health. But if you look up Market Link Florida, they're the people that you go through to actually get the ability. You become qualified to have the ability to accept EBT and to double people's dollars. And so there are only a handful of entities and markets that actually do that. The Frenchtown Farmers Market is one. They've just made their debut return last Saturday, and I don't think there was one produce vendor there. So you know, if some of you all really want to move into being at a market, like, the demand is there. We just don't have enough farmers to go around. But having your own market, you just need a location. You need a location. Um, it'd be good to have the ability to have power, to have water. Um, but I've seen markets in parking lots. You could have a generator that a few people who may need power can pull from that generator. Um, it just it's the will and the determination of the people to actually bring fresh food and fresh produce to people at an affordable price. But you got to start talking to each other. If you want to start a market, talk to people whom you are connecting with to find out, okay, who are the players in this area? Who are the farmers? Nobody's going to stop you from starting a farmer's market. Just connect with the right people who have the same vision, and you collaborate with them. And location is everything, right? But you collaborate with them to come up with the best plan to offer the best market that you can to the people in the community that you want to serve. Not a difficult thing to do at all. Just take a little bit of leg work. Where do we begin with starting our own farm with volunteers? Do you need an official company? Is there any specific equipment that is vital? You don't have to have a registered company with, the state of Florida to start a farm. Once you go into business and you want to handle business, yeah, you might need to register your farm. You can get a farm number through FSA, which is the Farm Service Agency. They are a subsidiary of the USDA. Once you receive your farm number, and some of you all are going to want to do this, so I hope that you're writing a few of these things down. Once you receive your farm number, you become eligible for USDA funds. So small grants, not small grants, but just grants. You can apply for small, medium, large grants. You're eligible for services through the NRCS, which is the National Resource Conservation Service. If you got water on your land, or if you have a couple of acres and you want to mark or confine a certain amount of it for conservation, meaning that you don't want to allow anybody to come in and till it up, you don't want anybody to come in and chop trees down, you don't want anybody to come in and disturb the soil, then NRCS will work with you and possibly share costs with you, and sometimes cover the entire cost to maybe putting up a fence that you need, or expanding your water source, expanding your lake, expanding your little pond or something. But anyway, you want to get a farm number, and you call your FSA office, your local office. Ours here is in Monticello, it's in Jefferson County, and you get a farm number. But you gotta have a farm space. And once you get a farm number, you become eligible for resources and finances through the various federal agencies, if you wanted to go that route. So, if you want to start a farm, you just need to have space and start a farm. It's not difficult to do. You all have seen the technology that some people use. You've seen the various growing methods, the various methods to control weeds, various methods of composting, of growing food, liquid amendments. You all have seen quite a few things. So now it's time to take all that you've seen and hone in on what you want to focus on. And once you do that, you'll then be a little bit more clear in your vision for your growing space. When I got into this world, we were all over the place. And so you don't want to be all over the place when you're starting your business. So be a little bit more precision based when thinking about how you want to grow, what you want to grow, where you want to grow, and who you're growing it for. Okay. but not difficult at all. You just got to put a little bit more thought into it. So we're going to move into pests and disease. So what is the best way to get rid of white flies? Ooh, white flies suck, but truth be told, a lot of Dawn, if you know, in small areas, small growing spaces, a lot of Dawn soap, Castile soap, Dr. Bronner's, other types of Castile soaps. You just spray them down, make a bucket full of soapy water, put some rubber gloves on, get that water and that soap, and just go around those leaves and those branches that the white flies are in. Real quick, local coffee farms? No, we don't have any local coffee farms. Coffee is not easy to grow in this environment. Not to say that it can't be done. I have a horticultural father, so to speak, that was one of my dad's kind of growing up. He's a horticulturalist, and he actually grew a coffee bean plant, but it was difficult for him to keep it alive and to really produce the way that he needed to. So coffee, no, we have a very interesting coffee culture here in Tallahassee. But all of the coffee brewers here, they import their stuff from Ethiopia, many parts of South America, maybe Jamaica. But yeah, so no coffee producers locally. At least none that I've come across. So white flies, aphids, a lot of those very small, tiny bugs. Dish soap, like I mentioned, the Dawns, and as well as the Castile soaps, like a peppermint type soap. Those work really well. Now, there's also, and some of y'all have heard of BT. It's actually made from the enzymes of the very bugs that you're trying to eliminate or eradicate in your growing space. And so you can spray that. It is man-made, but it's a very it's a safe, much safer insecticide. You could also spray your plants with compost tea in their early stages to give them that protective coating to prevent a lot of these bugs from penetrating your plant. So, but you gotta produce a good compost tea with lots of glues that occur during the brewing process, so that when you spray on, those glues are attaching themselves. The droplet from that compost tea, as it moves down and falls off that leaf or falls off that branch, every single piece that it touches of that leaf or that plant, it's leaving some bacteria, it's leaving some microbiology, and it's leaving that coating, right? And so it's a great way to boost the health of your plants, which is necessary to prevent pest infestation in the first place. You want to boost the health of your plants. I was mentioning, I think, to Yvette yesterday, that those pepper plants and everything out there, we should have been doing more soil drenches with the compost extracts and compost teas and spraying. We should have just been doing more, but we didn't. Everything's an experiment. You want best results, you do more. When you want best results, you don't do as much as you could, then your results will bear the effort and energy that you put in. But if you put in greater amounts of energy to provide more nutrition, more microbiology, more protection for your plants and your crops, then you'll see a better yield, you'll get better results. So that's normally how it works. You get out what you put in. Can we start the fall crops inside now? Absolutely. Get your seedlings going. Becca did a great job of seeding a few trays at Frenchtown last week. I'm telling you, it didn't take but just a few days for those seeds to germinate, and they're growing real nice. So I'm going to get out there in a little while and just check them, because I still have to protect them from the heat. You know, the heat will allow them to germinate really fast, but that same heat after they grow a couple of inches could be the demise of those same plants. And so, you know, we want to be able to germinate, utilizing the heat that we have. It's great too if you have a window where the sun comes directly in. Get you a couple of trays, put it in front of that window, and allow that heat to come through, and it'll germinate those seeds a lot quicker. You can also use heating pads. They make like a large heating pad for seed germination, where you just, you know, put your soil in, your seeds, and you put the seeding tray on the heating pad, right? And so that allows for a quicker germination also. But we have the heat that we need here to get great germination. Again, the trick is, or the key is, making sure that we move those seedlings, because they become very sensitive after, you know, a week or two. Removing those seeds from that direct sunlight. Even though we have a shade cloth over the frame at the farm, still it's a 70-30 shade cloth. So the 70% that's still getting into the space is still enough to dehydrate and kill those plants, right? And so we don't want to do that. We don't want to lose that great crop that we've already germinated for fall season. So kale, collards, I think some perpetual chard. It's like a spinach. What else, Becca? What else did we put in? Oh, some more zinnias. I think endive, which is like a frise. It's kind of like a lettuce. And it might have been one more. Yeah, but it's maybe Becca will type those in. Oh, and the broccoli, the little purple broccoli, right? Yeah. Okay. But now is the time to start doing your seedlings, start doing your trays. You know, I want to continue to stress the importance of having a good compost to start your seeds with. You all have seen what happens when we drop a seed in 2 handfuls of compost, surrounded by dirt, surrounded by, well, it's not fully dirt, but surrounded by sandy soil. I can't emphasize that enough. So the compost has to be quality. It has to have the microbial richness that you need to get those seeds going. And so what we've done, we've taken our compost, sifted, and we've added perlite to it. Perlite are the little white balls that look like styrofoam, but perlite is a natural mineral used in seed starting mixes to kind of give that porous space to allow roots to breathe when they begin to germinate. So you want to use a good compost. You can use perlite. You can use coconut coir, right? A lot of people are using that now in replace of sphagnum peat moss, because peat moss is not a sustainable product anymore. Peat moss is excavated from waterways all throughout Canada, and they've just been extracting it like crazy to provide as a agricultural amendment. But if you have history with peat moss, I would recommend that you now begin to use coconut coir, very similar in structure and absorption manner. So compost, perlite, coconut coir, worm castings, vermiculite. So these are all items that can be used in a seed starting mix. I don't use all of those. We use compost and perlite. Sometimes I might, there have been times where I've added, which one am I talking about? Worm castings, where I've added worm castings, because that's just going to give it more of a microbial start, a great head start. But we've done pretty well with just compost and perlite. So if you go use a different type of compost that you don't necessarily know the profile, and you say, okay, well, I know Native Nurseries sells a great seed starting mix, or it's really a potting mix. Okay. But you can use it as a seed starting mix. Now, I don't know all of the ingredients that they use in it, but I'm just telling you what we've used and what we've succeeded with. Compost, perlite, and like I said, add some worm castings. But you'll see different recipes for a seed starting mix online. Many farmers have many different ways in which they start seed. And a lot of it is based on, of course, what products are available in their environment. Okay. So yes, Quinn, get those seeds starting now. All right, a few more questions. Why are the squash leaves turning yellow? Do yellow leaves affect the fruit? Is there a remedy? Squash leaves usually turn yellow when there's a nutrient deficiency. And you usually see that after the plant has been growing for a while. And so that's why it's important to come back after you plant your seed or put your transplant in, to come back a few weeks and have a weekly regimen of adding that compost extract to your plant, or spraying it with your compost tea, because the nutrient profile or the nutrient cycling that's taking place amongst the bacteria, the fungi, the protozoa, and the nematodes, those four primary microorganisms, the nutrient cycling that's happening amongst those four doesn't stay the same during the entire. I got to get the plug. I would hate if this thing shut off. Tess, can you bring me that plug that's right there in the wall, please? Yes. Says your battery is low. Huh? No. The computer for the laptop. That's probably it. Thank you. This is my son, Tesfaye, y'all. He just came back from, he want to put his face in. Say what's up. What's up to the people? Yeah, that's Tess. And he just came back from class. He and his brother just started TCC this fall. Started Monday, actually. So I have 3 young men starting college. Yeah. Anyway, where was I? Okay, yeah. So we want to be able to, the nutrient cycling that's taking place amongst those microorganisms doesn't stay the same over the entire duration and growth rate or the growth process of the plant. And so as a plant is growing, the leaves that will begin to turn yellow are usually some of the earlier leaves, because those are the oldest leaves. And so that those leaves are just kind of waning off, right? But again, it could be a pest that's gotten inside of that squash plant. It could be that nutrient cycling is not taking place as rigorous as it should amongst those microorganisms. So come back with your compost extracts every week, every 7 to 10 days, and just massage that microbiology off of the compost through the compost tea bag into your clean water, and go pour that liquid at the root zone of that plant. Just continue to add, and you'll help slow down the waning off, or the falling off, or the deterioration of your plants. So that'll help, because your soil might not be that great to start out with. You might have added some compost, but all of those things, nutrients and the microbiology, they die off over time. They lose the ability to cycle those nutrients and to release those nutrients to your plants over time. So that's why you have to continue to add the organic matter, which takes us back to the beginning of the conversation, dealing with the compost and the cover crops, the castings, the organic fertilizers. Adding those things is what building soil is really all about. So not only are you building or increasing the microbial life and the fungal life and the presence of those microorganisms in your soil, but it is those things that help build the structure, right? Somebody mentioned the word aggregate yesterday, or the day before. That is what we're looking to create. We're looking to create aggregates, okay? So, do yellowing leaves affect the fruit? Most of the time they don't. Is there a proven method to get rid of ants? Y'all know me. Y'all see me. I don't pay those ants no mind. It could be an ant pile right there, an ant pile right there. I'd be like, all right, ants, y'all, have your way. Just try to stay out of them, try to stay out of their way. But for those who don't want to deal with ants, most definitely, old school method is grits, giving ants grits, and I think pouring some water in there, and eventually they'll eat the grits, and the grits will expand, and poof, explosion of the ant. Boiling water, if you're able to get boiling water to your ant mounds. Diatomaceous earth, you have to kind of apply it more than once. Ants are very elusive of diatomaceous earth, so you want to apply it more regularly. And good old lighting them on fire. Don't do that. But a lot of people do that. I've seen people just take gas, pour it on the ant mound, and light the thing on fire. But that's probably the most dangerous and most polluted method. But definitely, and outside of those natural remedies that I just named, most of the time you're going to find ant granules and ant powders that you'll find in Home Depot and Lowe's and other nurseries. But those things, that's straight chemicals, right? Straight synthetic chemicals. So if you don't want any of that stuff in your space, stay away from those bags of ant killer, right? Try those natural ways first and see what happens. All right, down to the last couple of topics, and I know a few of y'all had asked about red hills. So it says, is there a cost to selling through Red Hills? Yes. So there is a $50 annual membership fee, right? Oh yeah, Becca. Yeah, some people say take a shovel full of ant mound and integrate it into another ant mound, and they seem to murder each other. They kill each other off. So you're bringing two ant mounds together. Forgot about that one. Thank you. So with Red Hills, it's $50 for your annual fees, and everything that you sell, whatever your total is, they take 15% of your total sales. Okay, so um, I've heard some farmers don't want to do it because of the fact that they do take 15%, but you really have to think about what Red Hills is providing, what they're offering. You you list your available produce on your page on the website, on the Red Hills website, 8 a.m. Sunday morning. There are a plethora, over 4, 5, 600 customers that hit that portal, and they go grocery shopping. They go grocery shopping to shop from farmers all throughout the area, and they shop from 8 a.m. Sunday, and the shopping period closes about 7, 8 a.m. Tuesday morning, and then you have a day to gather your harvest, and you can deliver it either that Wednesday afternoon, or you can deliver it that Thursday morning, where they actually bag it all up and then go make their deliveries. And so you're getting the added benefit of an existing clientele. The people are already there, and those folks shop 8 a.m. sharp because they know that there are some farmers that are going to have, 5 of a particular thing. And they got to get in there first thing, 8 a.m. in the morning, to make sure that they get that one thing from that farmer that they want to purchase from. Okay. Becca asks, do you find you get orders every week? Yes, I list every week. I list every Sunday, or sometimes I'll list Saturday so that I can make sure that I don't have to worry about, missing any time. But there have been times where I've listed late, like I've listed at like 8:30 before. I've already missed customers just by listing at 8:30. Those folks are in there at 8 a.m. sharp, and they are aggressive at buying what they want to get from the area farmers. So that's why I try to stay proactive and try to, keep it up here. Sometimes put reminders on my phone. List your produce Saturday night. That way it is up and ready to be shopped and purchased by those customers at 8 a.m. sharp Sunday morning. And you do have some customers that will continue to purchase throughout the shopping period. So you have those that come and they shop 8 a.m. sharp. I'll see orders come in later in the afternoon on Sunday. I'll see orders come in all throughout Monday. And basically that's it. The shopping period closes that Tuesday morning, and you get a pick ticket. And so the pick ticket tells you what was ordered, how many were ordered, and what the weight is. So you can manipulate all of those factors and components within the software. So, if you have an abundance of something, you can sell a pound of it. You can sell 2 pounds. Or if you don't have an abundance of something, you can sell a half-pound bunch. And so there are ways to list all of those things on the Red Hill site. What is the process for selling? So I just kind of went over all of that. You list, you get a pick ticket. So you pick to order. So the beautiful thing about selling and distributing through Red Hills is that you don't have to go sit at a farmer's market for 4 hours. A farmer's market, really, the market itself is 4 hours, but we're talking about a 7 to 8 hour day where you have 2 hours prep and maybe 2 hours breakdown. So you worked a whole day an 8-hour shift, and you might walk away from a farmer's market with $100 in your pocket. So, you'll have food that sells, but then, you try to bring enough food to be able to sell off, but you may end up with, $75 still of food left on your table. And now you got to figure out what to do with that overage, that surplus. Well, let me call, a restaurant that I usually sell to, or, let me try to trade off with some of the other vendors. Maybe they'll want 2 bunches of my carrots for, a jar of that jelly that I want. So you start doing that towards the end of the day when you realize that you haven't sold everything. But with Red Hills, you don't have to worry about that. Pick to order. You get your ticket. You don't pick past that. You don't pick under it. You don't pick past it. You pick exactly what the folks ordered. And, some of you all have seen the harvesting and the bagging process that we have at the farm. Your situation might be different. Having a scale, bags, a tray to put it in. You might want to keep more data as you grow. Like back in the day, we used to actually write down the amount of pounds and ounces that we were selling of a particular crop. And so that data we would then use to try to project and forecast. But, you got to have people in place, and you got to really be looking at that type of stuff in order to truly forecast out. But you can do it. So any data is good data if you use the data. So we would record the pounds and the ounces of things that we would harvest, but we never really used it. And so that's why I don't do that now. I don't record every single thing that we harvest, because I know I don't have the time or the wherewithal at this stage of the game to be analyzing that data. It is something that I would like to be able to do, but I just don't do it now. So let's see. Do you stock at the locations? And so they have one hub. They have a main hub, right? That's where you deliver your food to. You harvest, you deliver your food to the main hub. From there, they bag, and then they go out to either deliver to people's homes, or they have hubs all over the area. They got a hub in Panama City. They got a driver that drives to Panama City every Thursday morning. They have a hub at like the Co-op, at Waterworks, at TMH, at Ology Brewery on 6th Ave. So they got hubs all over the place. The interesting thing when we start going into demographics is that they don't have a hub anywhere on the south side of town that I know of. And so that's something that Red Hills has struggled with, is how do they break into the market of the folks on the south side of town? From like Frenchtown, Griffin Heights, Frenchtown, all the way into South City, Bond community, because now Red Hills is able to accept SNAP, so they can double your bucks. You can actually double your bucks shopping through Red Hills. You spend $20, you can get $40 worth of produce. Don't get no better than that. But that is the hub. So you harvest your food. Like I said, that Wednesday, you can deliver your food that Wednesday afternoon, or you can deliver your food that Thursday morning, and then they do the rest from there. Is it pre-orders only? Yes, everything is on the website. They order, you get your ticket. Who determines the selling price of your products? You do. You determine the selling price. Well, I take that back. Let me back up. You, along with the market, not the market as in them. I'm talking about the overall market for how food is sold and for the prices that food is sold. If you have an abundance of okra, right, and you say, you know what, I just want to get rid of it. I'm gonna sell a pound of okra for $2. But your colleagues are all selling their okra, from a pound to 2 pounds, anywhere between like $3.50 to $5 or $4 to $6. You don't want to undercut your fellow farmer, right? It's not like a big competition between farmers through this network. This is a group of farmers who work with each other. They care about each other. They fellowship together. They meet up together. We share knowledge and we share secrets together. Not secrets, but best practices. We share these things with each other. So you don't want to undercut your fellow farmers if they're selling anywhere between $4 and $6, and then you come with a $2 markup for the same weight, then that's not cool on your part, and they will recognize that. So you want to be able to have competitive prices that everybody is around. You going back to school? You got class?
No, I'm just bringing my horse some shoes.
Okay. How's your back? Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll talk later.
All right.
Okay. Peace.
Peace.
Okay. So Lynn says $5.99 a pound. See that? I mean, $5.99 a pound at the store. I'm not even selling a pound of okra through Red Hills for that much. So $6 a pound. I might take mine up to $5.50 or to $6. I think I might be selling a pound for $4. Let me check. I'm gonna check real quick. Let me see what I'm selling a pound. Maybe I am selling it at close to $6. Maybe the half pound is $4 and the pound is $6. Let me double check. Hold on. Da. Actually, I am selling it for $6. So that's good. So I'm right there with where even the larger market is, and people are willing to pay that price. So this is what the pick ticket looks like. I'll be able to share it differently when we have another live stream, but I'm gonna bring that up. Oh wait, I don't think y'all can see any of that. Nah, it's too bright. Let me see. Can somebody say yes if you can see that, if it makes sense? If not, then just say no in the chat, because it's rather bright and I don't know if y'all can catch any of that. Yay or nay? No. Okay. All right. Won't try it. But anyway, so you have your crop, eggplant. You have the number sold. You have the weight category that you are selling it at. So we got the baby black beauty eggplant. We sold 4 of them. We're selling them at 2 pounds. And we were selling that for $4. So 2, 4, 6, 8 pounds of baby eggplant for $16. Okay. So, but normally what you began to see happen with all of the crops that many of the area farmers grow, they tend to stay within a $3.50 to $6 range for most crops, at a reasonable like pound or half pound up to about 2 pounds, or half pound up to about a pound and a half. So you're always going to just kind of be in that $3 to $6 price range. They do have an app. I I think the app is used primarily for customers, but I just go through the internet, through a web browser to list my product. But they do have an app. You go to your app store. I'm sure you can find it. So so we've covered just about everything. We're coming up on the 2 hour mark, y'all. Is there anything that anybody has a pressing question to unload so that we can touch on it for a little while before we get off? And give me a thumbs up or a yay or a nay if you found this webinar helpful, if this information has been helpful to you. And I won't be offended if you say, it was okay, not really. We already heard all of this. Yay, it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Trust me, I want you to be honest with me. And I will get feedback, but just from a content and informational perspective, give me a thumbs up or a yay if this was helpful and educational. And I do appreciate everybody for joining in. I appreciate it. Yes, I do. It is easier to take notes. Yeah. We're not out in the field sweating, drenching, sweat just dripping down. So definitely easier to take notes. And once we get this back up, if anybody wants to go back and grab information from it, you're more than able to do that. Okay, so any other questions about anything? I'll give an opportunity for anybody to put something in the chat. And there was something that Yvette and Sherry had mentioned while they were traveling through Georgia, when they would see what was it, Yvette and Sherry? Oh, it was the rows. The rows were not wood chipped, and it was just the dirt or the soil. Thank you all. I appreciate it. They were talking about how when they were traveling through Georgia, they would see these farms, and there was no wood chipping in the walkways. It was just the soil itself. And what we discussed, what I explained, was that it's you're not going to wood chip your walkways over several acres. It's just almost impossible to do. People just usually tend to use wood chips as a pathway or a walkway in very small urban spaces or very small farms, simply because it's usually a free resource. It's also a good soil builder. Wood chips are great for building soil because you invite exponentially amount of fungi into your space. But wood chips tend to take a long time to build up your soil, simply because they just take a long time to break down. But you put wood chips in an area that you want to build up, in a year or two, you'd have some amazing soil under those chips. Amazing soil. Yeah, so within larger farm spaces, they usually just keep the grass cut depending on how wide your rows are, or people are just walking on those areas. And a lot of these commercial farmers, they're going to spray herbicides right? So they have this plant that has been modified to withstand certain herbicides like Roundup. And so the corn is Roundup resistant, but you don't want all of these weeds growing up in your corn, because when you harvest the corn, the technology, or sugar cane or whatever the case may be, you don't want to be pulling up and harvesting a bunch of grass and weeds. So they're going to spray that Roundup, that glyphosate, on all of that corn, all of that sugar cane, all of that cotton, to kill all of the weeds. But that plant is resistant to that herbicide, so it keeps growing. But you think about it, that plant has been drenched with herbicides and fungicides, possibly, and synthetic fertilizers for various times throughout its life cycle. So got to keep that in mind in regards to dealing with weeds. But wood chips help with that as well, suppressing weeds. So you said learn that sand usage is better for cotton crops. Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. So I wonder how they integrate that sand usage into those clays, because you're going to find cotton pretty much growing throughout South and Middle Georgia. And that's a lot of clay up there. So I wonder if the sand is something that's just imported and they brought in to lay across the field, because cotton does well in more of a sandy profile, or I don't know. It's just good stuff to find out. All right, y'all. If there are no more questions, no more comments, I'm going to roll up out of here. I thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat with me and coming to listen to all the topics that you all submitted. I appreciate them. They were well thought out, and there's always so much more. So be on the lookout for more webinars. We're going to get the technology piece all the way straight. We're going to make sure that we're able to integrate PowerPoints, and I'd be able to share my screen. I mean, there's literally none of that on this screen. I probably have the most basic YouTube live screen in the history of this thing. There's nothing for me to click on to try to make it remotely more exciting for you. So, but we're going to figure it out, and we're going to come back better and stronger the next go around, so that I can actually show information and do some PowerPoint type things. But I love you all. Thank you. And until next time, y'all stay strong and keep the faith. And until we link up. All right. So that's tomorrow. Where we at tomorrow? Frenchtown, y'all. I think we're in Frenchtown. Normally Thursdays. It's Frenchtown Thursday afternoon. So, okay. All right. Peace.